Hey, folks, welcome in. We are going to get this started. I am running a few minutes late today. Uh, I don't know what the hell. Sorry about that. So, topics for today. I got to play with the Vortex Spark, Venom, Spitfire, and the Crossfire little mini red dot. I was really not impressed. I'm normally a Vortex fan, and they were subpar. If you look at, say, primary arms, let's see here. I can only go so far. I'm hooked up to an external drive, uh, doing a render, and I can't run away from it. Um, but yeah, they were not even on par with this primary arms SLX, much less the GLX products. Um, their 1X, I believe it was the Spitfire. It's a 1X non-red dot. It's got an extra reticle. It had serious weird fisheye effect at the edges. It was very distracting. Like when you moved your point of aim around, when you moved your eye at all, very distracting and disorienting. And totally like not okay. Like this is not 10 years ago. That's not acceptable. Much cheaper, basic brands can get this right. Vortex, I mean, yeah, the price point was there. Like, not saying that like for the money they were horrible, but if that's your name, how do you put out a product that budget, that low end, even if it's at that price point? And to be fair, they're a little cheaper than the primary arms stuff. I mean, they really are. Um, I was not looking at the more expensive stuff. They've got some that are like the $300 to $500 range. That's not what I was looking at. These were all 200 and under. But like the mini red dot was a very narrow aperture. I don't even know what to call it. The lenses that you were actually looking through were very narrow compared to my micro dot. Did same price. The quality was okay, but the buttons were hard to push and they were tiny. I mean, if you were wearing gloves, forget it. You're not going to be able to figure out what button you're pushing. You're not going to be able to feel it. Um, and the optical clarity was just, it was okay. It wasn't bad. Um, but I wasn't going, ooh, that's good. Even for the price point. Now, don't get me wrong. If you have older primary arms, red dots, they've got a serious color cast. The clarity is not great, but the new stuff is pretty damn good, even in the SLX line, and the GLX is superb. So I have a hard time justifying the Vortex over the primary arms when at the same price point or similar, the primary arms is better. I mean, the Vortex warranty only goes so far, right? Primary Arms stands behind their stuff too. And even Primary Arms doesn't consider their SLX line to be, a hardcore item. So how is something that isn't even as good as that going to be something you're trusting? I mean, I was looking at them for a friend. A friend is just getting into ARs and is shopping. And I was like, well, if that's what you're looking at, I have no reference. I have not looked through a Vortex lower end optic or any of their red dots. I mean, it's been ages. I think I looked through like one of the first ones, and that was it. The only thing I've experienced with recently is their Viper line, Viper PSTs, the regular Vipers, and I like them. They're good, but that's a whole nother price point. And it's not even the kind of product she's looking at. So that's kind of where I'm at on that. I was not impressed. I think that the marketing hype and the publicity has not been accurate, which is annoying. The media needs to be more, the gun media needs to be more realistic about these things. You can't hype up a product like that. give us realistic information. Um, you don't have to be negative about it, but don't act like this is a premium product when it's not. I mean, Vortex, obviously, their advertising is their advertising. They're trying to sell it, right? So I'm not knocking the advertising portion. I'm pissed off, not pissed off, but like I'm annoyed at the fact that YouTubers, um, the the magazine articles and things like that, blogs, have acted like these were on par with common products in their price range. Well, if you don't consider primary arms to be a common product in that price range, where are you? They define that price range. Like literally that they have defined the market in that price range. And I mean, I hate to be a primary arms fanboy in that sense, but they do. Um, and I mean, I came home and I went, am I just imagining it? And I pulled out my primary arms stuff and looked through. Yeah, yeah. I mean, the Vortex stuff was in line quality wise with primary arms stuff from their first generation, like their early stuff that they've long since improved on. So I don't know. Now, next topic, because we're going to switch, we're going to do some sort of political, social stuff, and then back to gun stuff. This will probably only be a half hour. I still have to get food, guys. um, Twitter. Elon Musk, trying to buy Twitter, or at least buy a controlling interest in Twitter. He currently owns a little over 9% and offered 30% premium to basically buy it. Now, Twitter is currently privately held. It is not a public corporation. But, you know, he's making the offer, and certainly there are enough small shareholders that he could probably take over if he was willing to spend the money, um, well beyond 30% probably. But apparently he's got a plan B if they don't take it. And that's not the story. The story is that him even having the 9% and having any kind of influence has all sorts of people at Twitter and talking about Twitter freaking out. And the only thing I can come up with for most of it is they don't want the man behind the curtain exposed. They don't want their system, their manipulation exposed, because otherwise, what's the problem? He's not any different than, I mean, like the Saudi kingdom, like literally the royal family of Saud owns a significant chunk of Twitter. No one was, at Twitter was concerned with that. I mean, if you're not familiar, the House of Saud is not exactly known for being liberal. They aren't exactly known for freedom of information. Now, don't get me wrong; they are not necessarily, anti First Amendment in the U.S. But as a whole, like this is a royal family that runs their country their way. It's you do it our way or you don't do it, right? They are a kingdom in the traditional sense. They are not a kingdom like the United Kingdom. They are a kingdom where the king still rules, not sits there and looks cute on a throne while Parliament rules. So, if that wasn't a problem, what's the problem with Elon Musk? And the answer apparently is that he'll actually force them to have rules that they enforce openly, not preference, not opinion. Did fact checking won't be, well, we don't like it, so it's wrong. Did verification for getting a blue check mark is actually not a popularity contest internal to Twitter. Things like that. And I mean, the crying and gnashing of teeth has been hysterical. I don't I think that they're literally shooting themselves in the foot because they've created a scenario where they've made it more and more clear that they can't afford whatever they're doing to come into the light. And well, I mean, if you're doing that and you can't hide it anymore because you're fighting so hard to try to hide it, that's effectively the same thing. You're shooting yourselves in the foot. You are basically destroying your ability to have a future. And I am making a prediction. Uh, nothing riding on this personally. I don't own anything in Twitter. I use it for cryptocurrency stuff and snarky comments, and that's about it. Um, I'm predicting that if Elon Musk does not successfully maintain at least strong influence at Twitter, if they force him out of his 9% or simply refuse to let him inside, that Twitter will not be what it is today in terms of market share, in terms of dominance in 2 years. I think by the time we have the next election, Twitter will be a fallen giant because too much of the world is watching. This wasn't something that happened in the back pages of the Wall Street Journal. This is happening live. Like Elon Musk does something and he tweets about it on Twitter. And then 2 minutes later, there's some, coder from Twitter freaking out on Twitter, posting a video on YouTube. Like you can't make this shit up. So, I think that the people who are not in it for the control and the influence, who are there because it was a financial investment, you may want to get out. And if Elon Musk wants to buy your shares, you might want to sell them because if you don't, they may be worth a lot less very soon. Because if you don't sell, and if Elon Musk basically shows, because he already controls 10%, right? Effectively 10%. If he uses that to get enough information to bring it out to the light of day, or if simply the trust level that is already dropping like a rock continues to fall, well, if half of your user base leaves, if half of your user base just goes, you know what, we're done, we're out, there's other platforms. And keep in mind, a good chunk of the Twitter user base is not casual. Hang on, I had something cat fur trying to get under a key on my keyboard. I didn't want to go get it under there. You have a lot of programmers. You have a lot of serious money influencers. Like you have Mr. Beast, for example. He makes millions and millions a year on social media, right? He is somebody who despite his age, he looks at it long term. He's looking at the growth. He's looking at where he wants to go, what direction he wants to aim, what platforms he needs to be on for the future. And if he sees Twitter failing, he could put money and a team. He has one hell of a team, right? Into helping launch a new platform. And can you imagine, okay, just as an example, if 20 of the top YouTube, Twitter, Instagram influencers, because nobody likes any of those three platforms, right? They're all a mess. TikTok as well. If the top people from those platforms all said, you know what, screw this, we're sick of being at the mercy of a group that is not influencers, that they're controlling our influencing our creative work, that is how we make a living. Because let's face it, that's what these are. They're making a living. where we don't want it to be a political control unless we're like, we want to make our political message, but we don't want it to be political control from the system, from the platform. And if they just made a new platform, if all of them moved to Parler, for example, or made their own, I'm assuming they wouldn't do their own work, but like if they hired a team and made it. I mean, Elon Musk has some of the best AI programmers in the world. You really think they can't make a social? I think that they probably have one. What does Twitter use internally for team operations? Like you tell me you can't scale that up and make that a social media platform. Really? Not buying it. The cryptocurrency world, some of the best programmers in the world, the best big picture, decentralized platforming kind of programmers are very big on Twitter. These are people with billions of dollars to spend. Now they're not Elon Musk kind of money, but they can do the work. They don't have to farm it out. They can literally go, hey, this is what we're doing this year. We're putting a team together and we're making this. And they can sit there and do it, not hire a team. They are the team. They don't need a job. They don't have to make any money. They don't have to make any videos. They don't have to do anything. These are people who have, they're in their 20s or early 30s and are independently wealthy with incredible computer coding skills, networking skills, and they have their own social network, not a social network in the digital sense, but these people know each other. These people are used to working together. They are used to cooperating, even when they don't necessarily like each other. And it crosses over borders. The crypto community is international. And for all of its fighting internally, there's still this attitude of us versus them. It's like siblings, right? You're fight, 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 but anybody from outside gets in the way and everybody turns on them. And I don't know. I think that will be very interesting. I think that Twitter can't win if they fight this. They would be better off letting Elon Musk buy in and take over, because what does he want to do? Like, given what he wants to do, can you argue that this is bad without making it so clear that what you're doing is bad? Right? Because it's not like you can twist this. Even if you don't like Elon Musk, you can't really make a rational argument of him being anti-free speech, anti-discourse, uh, anti-social media. Like, he is literally that guy. He is the guy who's like, throw it all out there. Let's see every idea. Let's argue about this. Let's find reality. Let's find the truth. And not hide inconvenient things in the shadows. Let's not shut somebody up just because we don't like what they have to say. No, prove them wrong. If they're saying something you disagree with, prove them wrong. Show why they're wrong. But that's not what the current system supports. So we'll see. Now, back to gun stuff. The next topic is, what makes a general purpose AR? Why does it matter? Why you should have one? If you are somebody who is, my caffeine is wearing off. If you are somebody who is relatively new to this or is coming to this from a more hunting oriented background, because a lot of people own ARs where either it's hyper tactical or they own an AR, but it's a very basic design or a very hunting oriented design. I know a lot of guys who have ARs that are essentially set up for hunting and only hunting. Like they have real magnified optics. They, you know, don't have any kind of provision for a normal tactical sling. It's a hunting style sling, um, and they're usually heavy. Um, you know, we'll get to it. Now, why would you want one? Well, why not? One of the beauties of the AR is that it's very easy to switch it around. And most of how I define a general purpose AR versus a anything else AR has to do with the upper. You can very quickly anything you had on the lower, you could change. If you have a really non-appropriate stock, well, I mean, how fast can you change a stock, right? I mean, slide, done. Um, if you don't have a receiver end plate with a QD socket, which I think is important for a general purpose AR, okay, that's $15 and 20 minutes of your time to change. Your biggest worry is losing the spring for your takedown D10, which certainly is a worry. If you lose that, you're waiting on a new one if you don't have spares, right? By the way, if you don't have spares, get spares of that. Get a spare whole lower parts kit, a whole spare upper parts kit. It does not hurt. They're not expensive. Shit happens. If you're breaking down an AR, replace something, and you lose one of those springs, a D10, anything. Why wait? Why have to wait, 3 or 4 days to get it? Why hope the gun store has one? So it's the upper. And to me, a general purpose upper needs to be legal in your area without being long. So 16 inches or shorter if you do a pistol style AR or you have an SBR. If you have an SBR, certainly you can do that. But honestly, assuming 5.56, which is also what I would suggest, general. Remember, we're talking general purpose. Part of that is the universality of ammo, that you can just walk in and get ammo. So I love what the effect does to my hair, depending on how I move. Like I suddenly have like inch long hair. I don't know if you guys see that. I see it when I move on my screen. Sorry, distractions, squirrel. Where was I? Oh yeah, 12 and a half inches as the short end, 16 as the long end. 12 and a half inches, you better be using a can. If you have not seen the fireball out of a 12 and a half inch AR without a can, it's impressive. It's not subtle, and the volume level is extremely high. So if you're using a can, certainly you can go shorter. This is not something, a general purpose AR does not need to be able to be highly effective past a couple hundred yards. Can you hit something? Sure. But I'm not requiring or expecting a lot of energy or precision that far out. This is call it 200-yard nin gun. So that's going to determine a couple things: barrel requirement, ammo requirement, kind of expectation of accuracy, and also optic, because I think that you can either use a 1 or 2x optic or a red dot. I don't think you want more magnification. And honestly, I'm not a huge fan of the red dot unless it's one of the ones with a more precise reticle, the ACSS or something equivalent. There's other companies with different things. But my point is that I want something that can be very fast, where you've got a big circle, donut, tree, whatever, so that if you're doing CQB kind of shooting, you've got that. And then a very precise aim point, not a 4-minute angle dot, not even a 3-minute angle dot. If you've ever tried to shoot a relatively small object at 200 yards with a 3-minute angle dot, you realize that's 6 inches, right? Plus bloom. If you have it turned up too far, 6 inches covers most of your target, right? If you're trying to shoot a small popper, you probably can't see the popper. You have to put the red dot on it and go, well, it's I can't see it, so it's on it, right? That's less than ideal. Um, and to me, a lighter barrel, lighter weight overall, a longer rail, because a lot of techniques involve getting your arm way out there, right? We're doing one of these. Let me get my arm down, but I'm so into the archery thing lately. But you get your arm down, your arm is out, you're wrapped up and over, way out, and that's a thing, right? So if you have a short handguard, now you're in tight. There's times and places for that, don't get me wrong, but it's less than ideal for a lot of things. If you're going to do that, you might just do a magwell hold and call it a day. And who cares what your handguard is? You could still have the long handguard. So let me show you two examples, because one, they look very similar, but they have different accessories and different setups, and they don't end up doing the same thing at all. So this guy, no, the stock is not my problem. The stock is just fine. I have a perfectly good, I believe that's a Mod 3. I'm not positive about that. BCM charging handle. I have a nice trigger in here. I'm perfectly happy with that rail. It's an 11 or 12-inch rail or something. I can't remember. I think it's a 12.5-inch rail. I've got provisions for a sling. Back here, it has to strap on, is what it is. But you can get these with a QD socket right in here now. It's a thing. But I have a very big magnified optic. It's heavy. It's not subtle. I also have, it doesn't balance real well, which is part of the problem. And I don't want to smack my monitor, which is next to me. A bipod. Again, the bipod does not fit the general purpose requirement. The bipod can be great for DMR. It can be great for a hunting rifle, perfectly good hunting rifle. You can hunt with 5.56 for whatever you're hunting. But I got a heavy barrel. This is they call it a mid-weight barrel, but it's basically a medium heavy that minimal tapering underneath here, kind of heavy out front. I mean, you can see it's the same diameter all the way down here, right? Stainless steel, I shouldn't say very, pretty accurate. So if you ask me to take a shot at 400, 500, 600 yards with an AR, absolutely. This is my setup. This is what I'm going to use. And lower can change out to whatever. I don't care. This would be the upper. I would love to build one of these in 6.5. Half these parts would come off and go on to 6.5. But not a general purpose, right? You can kind of do those tasks. You put it in 2.5x and you just close up the bipod and you call it a day. Or you take the bipod off. It's a QD bipod. But it's kind of heavy. It swings slow and then doesn't want to stop. Just less than ideal. At the other end of the spectrum, this guy, tail heavy, actually. This is a Veltor E-Mod, and literally has a bar of steel back here. It sticks out down the bottom, but balances really well. And easy provisions for a sling, lightweight rail, skinny barrel, that is the fax and pencil barrel in 5.56, a 2x optic, which is very bright and clear and can be used like a red dot. You have to have your face mostly behind it, but to be honest, I can still see it. 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 Okay. So I don't have to be perfect. And close range, it'll still hit the target. Like you're not going to be so far off that you can't hit the target. That is a misconception. Is it going to be perfect? Are you going to be a couple inches off? Sure. But how far are you shooting? Like if you're in that weird position, what are you doing? Are you shooting under a car at somebody who's 50 feet away? Because 50 feet, you're going to hit them. You're not 50 yards, you're 50 feet. In that kind of environment, 50 feet is still long. That's still pretty far out there. If they're not that close, what are you doing? Right? If you're in a self-defense scenario and they're not that close, if they're further away, why are you not departing the area or finding a better shooting position? Right? These things are great if you're running a tactical game, if you are doing a competition, if you are just training, just for the experience to get yourself used to fundamentals and knowing how to handle different situations. I'm not saying that is something that you like is totally unrealistic and don't ever do it. I'm just saying like this is an unlikely scenario compared to most. And that in the scenarios it comes up, this kind of setup still works. Is it as good as the red dot in that scenario? No, it's not. But guess what? Even red dots have parallax out to about 30 yards. Most red dots. They don't talk about it much, but yeah. If you're in close, there's still some parallax. It's a thing. I have can we see that? Yeah, I've got a Geisley airborne charging handle. I really like it. Ambidextrous. I think that's valuable on a general purpose AR, not for when it's being used for hunting, not when it's used at the range, not when it's being used at the range, but any kind of self-defense scenario, having it on either side is handy. Pistol grip on this one is very textured, but is sloped enough that offhand it's great. Prone a little less so. Off the bench it's okay. But, it's biased toward when am I going to care the most, right? Weight-wise, swings really well, okay? You can move it and stop it, and it stops. The weight is not forward where it has momentum to it. The other thing this has is a muzzle device that, well, okay, as a compensator, it's got some holes up top, and it's got the side ports, is meant for a suppressor. And I think that in this day and age, if you have not done a suppressor, don't buy another gun. Do the suppressor. Put the money into that instead. If you are, sitting there going, well, I've got an AR. Do I want to build another AR? Do I want to buy another handgun, shotgun, whatever? If you're thinking about spending anything near $1,000, do the suppressor. Put in your tax stamp, get some sort of suppressor. There are lots of options out there that are like $700 or $800 plus the $200 tax stamp for a good 30 caliber suppressor. Yes, buy a 30 caliber. Even if you're putting it on an AR in 22, this is 22, still do the 30 caliber because then you can put it on your 308. You can put it on your 6.5 Creedmoor, your 6.5 Grendel, your 270. You can put on anything. If it's rated as a 30 caliber can, not pistol caliber, 30 caliber rifle, you can probably put it on almost anything that is 30 caliber or smaller. And that is useful. If it's going to be your only can, or at least your only can for a while, that's the way to go. I would also look at the total weight and the total size. You don't need the maximum amount of suppression. What you want is something that is not stupid long, not stupid heavy. Unless you need full auto rated, in which case you probably already know all this. Don't do full auto rated. That adds weight, that adds expense. You don't need it. The difference between full auto rated and not full auto rated is significant. Any non-full auto rated is going to be perfectly fine with you doing a manual mag dump. Unless you've got a binary trigger and your last name is Mikulik, you're okay. You're fine, right? It'll be okay. Now, that doesn't mean you don't want to consider the heat level if you decide to do multiple mag dumps. Don't abuse your can, but it'll work. Um, and that's kind of where I'm at. A general purpose AR needs to be relatively light, appropriately sized, have an optic that is well suited for anything from point blank to 200 yards, that enables relatively precision shots at 200 yards. I don't want something that I can't make a careful shot at 200, but I also don't want something that is horrible up close. So I do want something with illumination. If I have an extra reticle, I want illumination, but it doesn't need to be daylight bright. That's not part of my requirement list. It doesn't hurt, just not on my requirement list. I don't want something that is so heavily oriented toward one particular setup or another that it is handicapped in others. For example, I don't want a bipod on it. I can always find something to rest it on if I want to. I can put my arm out there. I can, throw a backpack under it. I can, find freaking anything. Like, you can always make that work. Is it ideal? No, but you can make it work. The bipod gets in the way, adds weight, and gets in the way of your hands. Now, in scenarios where the bipod is appropriate, the bipod is wonderful, but it's not necessary for most of what I'm suggesting a general purpose AR is for. Now, that's not to say that you can't go, well, my general purpose AR also does this, and when I'm doing that activity, I put the bipod on. I mean, that's the lovely thing about ARs, right? You can even have multiple optics on QD setups where they retain zero, and you go, okay, I'm going coyote hunting. Let me put on my, 2.5 to 10 or my 6 to 20 or whatever and go coyote hunting. And then when you get home, you put on the other optic. That kind of thing. I'm not against that. I think that's the beauty of having an AR. So I also think that if you don't have an AR yet, a general purpose AR is what you should be getting or building. Particularly these days, I really think that the more they push, the more you want to have that ready for yourself, that tucked away. Then add options if you don't already have options. If you already have other options, why not add that? Build yourself a new upper that meets those needs, or look at what you've got and go, yeah, I can take this off there and I can put this on, and maybe all you need is an optic. If you've got an upper in 223 that's currently perfectly good set up for coyote hunting, yeah, I mean, it's probably, you might have it suppressed already. It's a mid-weight barrel, which is fine. I'm not saying you have to have the pencil barrel with a relatively long rail, and you've got a bipod on there. Well, you can take the bipod off if you want, right? It isn't permanently attached, and you just change the optic. The rest of it's probably fine. So that is it. We went 39 minutes. And I'm going to get some food, and then I'm going to get back to some projects I've been working on. So I have a video on the process of assembling an AR. I can't show it on camera. YouTube is these days. But what's the sequence and things to look out for? And that is coming on Saturday. That is ready. You can't see it, but I'm looking at a, render successful pop-up on my screen telling me that finished. And it is a relatively long one. It is 20 minutes, 23 minutes or something. But I think it's a lot of good info. If you've never built an AR, or if you are considering modifying an AR you have, and you are nervous about taking things apart, for example, you're not somebody who routinely breaks down their AR to component parts, and you're a little nervous about it because let's face it, a lot of people are new to this. Um, it's a good video. It covers some of the easy things to screw up, or at least have not go smoothly. Whether you're taking it apart, putting it back together, or building from scratch. Um, Assembling. I mean, building an AR is kind of I hate that term uh, because you're not building anything unless you're machining parts or something. But anyway, take care, have fun, stay safe, everybody. Keep shooting, and get your ammo now.